Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Think Business Exclusive. I'm looking forward to talking with Norma Zager, who, Norma, I have not seen you. I'm going to be 50 this year. I don't think I've seen you. I don't think I've seen you or really talked to you since I was probably around 20 some years old. And I have very fond memories of you as living in Detroit and being at parties with my parents, and always really being kind of the life of the party, always bringing laughter to the room, always having a great smile on your face. But this interview I'm looking forward to because to me, your story is one of reinvention, and your story is one of transcendence. And I always find those stories very inspiring, as I think many people do. And this series that I do, Think Business Exclusives, I really don't do too many of them. They're more of deep dives versus my normal daily live broadcast that I do, where it's really just business. So we're going to talk a lot about business today, but we're also going to talk about just you and the journey of you, Norma Zager. So it's great to see you, Norma. It's great. You look exactly the same.
Thank you for that. And your mother, may she rest in peace. She was such a doll, and she was a great audience for me.
Yeah.
She was like one of those people where I love to talk to Wendy because she got everything. You know? Your dad and her, she got everything. She really, she was a good audience to try everything out on, believe me.
Yeah. She, I have such great memories of my mom. It's been almost, unfortunately, 25 years since she passed away, but she loved to laugh, and she loved telling, she loved being funny, and she loved laughing with other funny people. So
she was a great gal. She was a great gal.
Yeah. Thanks, Norma. So let's rewind, Norma, because you've had such you've had an amazing journey thus far. But I want to rewind because I really want to understand the mentors and the seeds that were planted at a very early age. So take me somewhere before 10. And I want to know, even if it wasn't in the moment that you knew, but in hindsight that you can reflect on, the mentors that planted seeds that helped you get to where you are today.
It's really odd that you say that, because I'm going to go back really far. Okay. I'm going to go back to Werner Elementary School.
Okay.
and I know a lot of us will be remembering old Werner Elementary School. And I had a teacher. People talk about teachers and what an influence they are on your lives. I had a teacher at Werner. He was the gym teacher there, Mr. Spafford. I'm sure a lot of people listening to us today will remember him. And he was my homeroom teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to bring in, every day he would bring in little clippings from Wisdom magazine. Now, we were little kids. We were just, come on, we were elementary school kids.
Right.
What did we know about philosophy? We knew nothing about Sartre or Kirk or any of these people. So he would bring in clippings, and then during homeroom period, we would discuss philosophy.
Yeah.
Now, I never would have believed that philosophy would be something that would really play a huge role in my life. But every in school, even through college, every course I took in philosophy, I aced it.
Yeah.
It really had an effect on me. It seems, of course, so many things were over my head at that age.
Yeah.
But so much sunk in. And really must have taken root, because it made me kind of fearless.
Yeah.
It gave a different take on life to me.
Yeah.
Of course, there are times whenever somebody tries something new, I've learned in life, it's scary.
Yeah.
Most people are afraid to attempt new things because it's frightening to get out of your own comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I really believe that Mr. Spafford and his teachings of philosophy, and in gym, I stunk. I stunk. Miss Susan, the other teacher, would have said she was a total washout. Okay,
but
I have to tell you,
he
was the one. He was the one who, I think, he instilled a lot in me about life, and living it and having certain attitudes. So there you go. There's my mentor, Mr. Spafford.
Well, I love that story. And what I love about it is I think we all need people to, regardless of our age, help us define what's in us or what we can't define on our own, whether that's a mentor, a book, something. But it sounds like he was really able to help frame something that maybe even if you could only use bits and pieces of it in that moment, it sounds like he framed it enough and structured it enough and packaged it enough where you could infuse it in the future parts of your life.
And also, Jon, you have to remember that when somebody believes that you are capable of understanding something so far beyond yourself, it also gives you a certain confidence to believe that's true. Yeah. I mean, I was a child, and here is a man talking to me about the great thinkers of life, and the fact that he thought I was capable of understanding that. Yeah. It made me realize I can understand it.
Yeah. Well, and I would think, Norma, that it gives you a lot of not only confidence, but like kind of almost raises your level of dignity of yourself, because I was never, I have two kids, soon to be 19, soon to be 16. I never talked to them like babies. I always talked to them like they were adults. I mean, not that I talked, but I just was never a baby talk person. I mean, I could have fun with my kids, and I still do. But what I love what you're saying is he kind of saw the deeper insight in all of you than maybe the normal person would have.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're taking the time to have. Yeah.
And it makes a difference. I have to tell you, when people believe in you, then it really helps you to believe in yourself. Yeah. It took me a long time. I didn't get a lot of that. I was very lucky because I didn't get a lot of that from adults. He was one of the few who really gave me a lot of credit, to be honest. I mean, my friends, I was lucky because I always had wonderful friends, tons of wonderful friends who were always encouraging, and we had fun, and they really gave me a great sense of self. Isn't that funny? But my friends did that for me.
Yeah. And what about your parents?
They still do. You know that? They still do. Yeah. I'm still in touch with friends that I've had since we were in kindergarten or before. And it really, we're still close to this day. We still, have close ties. I think that deep and lasting friendships are very important to a person in life. I think they really help you. They really help you go through, guide you a great deal.
Yeah, no, I would agree. What, just kind of keep it in this kind of same category. And, what role did your parents play in your sense of self?
My parents were the type of parents. They were very old school. My mother didn't believe you should give anybody an ego. You should say anything nice. Because if you told your kids they were pretty or they were smart or this or that, they would get too full of themselves. That was not my mother at all. So she was one of those people that would do the opposite. So I think that the role my parents played in my life was to create in me a need to show them what I could do. Yeah. Literally, there was always that determination to excel, to be somebody, to not be somebody in that sense, but to consciously or unconsciously, I think they drove me a great deal without even realizing it. Yeah. I think parents can be incredibly supportive or incredibly unsupportive. And I think that their faith in you can take their faith or lack of faith in you can drive you in many directions. Yeah. And my parents drove me in the direction of, what the heck? I can do this, Yeah. And I think that's the part they definitely played in my life. My parents don't forget, they were old school. When your mother and I grew up, it was not like go and become presidents of the United States. Right. It was pretty much like, could you just go find a husband and give us grandchildren? And I'm not saying that we don't still feel that way about our kids, but the bottom line is we didn't have women at that time had a defined role. My parents were very, very much that old school mentality where a son excels and goes out in life and does fabulous things, and a daughter just has to find a great husband. That's her only achievement. And I think that was, when I look back now, there were a lot of ways there are a lot of things I might have done in life or pursued if I hadn't had that mentality. I understand very well why Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem came out of Jewish homes and started the feminist movement. I totally get it. Because my parents were very much of that old school mentality.
Yeah. As you package all of that up in the way you were raised, how did that influence you and the way that you parent?
Yeah, I was quite the opposite. My kids say sometimes I went overboard. Sometimes, But I was very much the opposite. I always told my children, you can do anything you want. But it wasn't just that I told them. I also tried to show them. I tried to be an example. Like when I started doing comedy at 39 years old, it was, whose mother goes out and starts doing comedy? It was like, but part of me really wanted to show my kids, I wanted to succeed for them, because I wanted them to say, look at my mother, look at her. Look what she can do anything she wants. Why can't we? And I think that both of my children adopted that. I think that's sunk in with both my kids because they're fearless. They really are.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit more about being fearless and reinventing yourself. So you're 39 years old, which I just want to highlight, is very young, right? Maybe
now. I'm looking back at it, John. When I was 39, I didn't feel so young.
Right. So you're reinventing yourself. So I want to know because to me, at least, the way I know you initially was, you're Norma Zager. And then I remember very clearly when my parents were always talking about, oh my God, Norma's so funny. She's going into stand-up comedy. And I even remember at such a young age thinking, that makes sense. She's hilarious. But here's what I want to know. The journey from the decision, this is what I think, and I think listeners will find inspiring. The wanting to do it and that first step on stage, that's, to me, would be one of the hardest journeys, right? And so kind of walk us through that journey.
Well, it's so funny because that you say that, because a lot of people assume that because Uncle Henry is hilarious at parties and he can throw a lampshade on his head and make everybody laugh,
right,
that he can get on a stage and be a comedian, and he would just be another, Henny Youngman. He would
correct. I love Henny Youngman. I love Henny Youngman. But there is an art and science to comedy, and it is a phenomenal skill set. So I recognize it is not an easy thing to do. So walk us through that journey.
Well, the first thing I did is the reason I got even involved in this craziness was because I had written a few jokes for Joan Rivers. I was at the time, my kids were still in school. You guys were still young.
Yeah.
And I worked as a freelance writer from home. And I actually was working a lot for the Jewish News in Detroit.
Yeah.
And I did freelancing, and I had one of those writer's market books. And in the book, it said that Joan Rivers was looking for jokes. So I figured, why not? I'll try. What's the worst that can happen? She doesn't buy them.
Yeah.
And she was only paying $10 anyway. So I figured, what the heck? This is no loss. So I wrote a few jokes and I sent them. And lo and behold, she bought them. She bought the jokes. So I kind of like that. Wow, I could actually write comedy material. It's one thing to be funny, and it's another thing to know how to write a joke.
Right.
Set up, punch, whatever it is.
Well, the timing. I mean, it's like there's so much to it. Right.
Oh yeah, it's more than people think. A good comedy writer. Wow, that's a tough job. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, then all of a sudden, I was continuing to write for her, and one of my brothers said to me, "How much is she paying you?" I said, "She's paying me $10 a joke." He says, "What are you, stupid?
What is that, a joke?
$10 a joke? You're funnier than she is. Get up, go do your own jokes."
Right.
And I don't know why, but life is full of, I believe everything in life is destiny. A lot of life is destiny. And we walk that path, and we just have to have the guts to walk it. And something clicked inside of me when he said that. And we were lucky because, well, you're still lucky. You have a comedy club in Detroit area called the Comedy Castle.
Yeah.
Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak.
Mark's a great guy.
Yeah. And he had Monday night open mic night. Now, it took me about a month of getting my guts up to actually call and try to get a spot, but I did. And my husband it was looking at me like, "What are you, nuts? What is this craziness?" Now, I'm used to you being crazy, but this is really nuts. But I finally got up the nerve, and we went on a Monday night for open mic, and I stood up on that stage. And all I could see was lights in my eyes, because I wasn't aware that the spotlight, and I couldn't see anything. The contact lens, it was bouncing the light off of them. I'm looking at the audience, and I'm thinking I'm in your mother's living room, and I'm telling people a funny story, and they're going to laugh. They weren't laughing. They were looking at me like, who is this old lady, this nut? And she's like, I sucked. I bombed. So, and meanwhile, Michael is like in the back of the room with the bouncer at the door with my coat in his hand, ready to run for his life into the parking lot and get out, and escape. So we got out, and the bouncer, big, tall guy, he says to me, "I'll come back next week and do another 10 minutes. And Michael looked at him and said, "What are you, nuts? Come on, Lucy. Come on, we're done with show business." So we go out, and as we're walking out, there's a kid coming out of the bathroom, young, about 21, 22 years old. And he says to me, "I loved you up there. You reminded me of my mother." Well, that was it. So I went home, and I took all the jokes Joan didn't buy, believe it or not, and I put them together in a 10-minute act, went back the next week and got laughs. And that was it. And I was on my way, and I never looked back.
What is it? Talk about what it is like to get laughs. I want to know, because I think a lot of times people are fascinated by comedians. I am, because does a laugh, is it fulfilling? Does it fulfill your ego? Does it give you encouragement and confidence? Does it do all of the above? Like what does it do? Is it about you getting the feedback that you need, or is it about making the person laugh, or a combination of everything in that?
You know what I think? When I've looked back and examined this.
Yeah.
And most people think that there's that comedians there's a need in them for that it's love, that laughter is that love that they need, and there's a hole in them that needs to be filled. Probably that's partly true from a lot of the comics that I know. None of us are quite normal, but I will tell you what I loved about comedy the most. I love the interaction with people. Just like, to me, it was no different being on a stage and talking to these people, the audience, as being in your mom's family room and talking to my friends. I also got a big kick out of it when it made me feel really good making people laugh. Yeah. It was like, I felt like I was doing something really positive for them. Yeah. This was like, I felt like, when people do charity work, they feel really good about themselves. Yeah. Well, selfishly, I felt really good about myself making other people laugh. Yeah, I understand that. And bringing a little joy to their lives. I remember one night in Las Vegas, a woman came up to me after the show and she hugged me. And she said, "Thank you so much. I have had one of the worst weeks of my life. And you made me laugh. And thank you, thank you, thank you." And, I was so touched, and I felt so good about that. And that's definitely been one of the impetuses for me is creating in someone else that bit of joy and knowing I can bring it to them. Yeah. It's a great feeling for a comic. Really. It amazes me. Yeah, I love that. We could run through multiple statistics on getting rid of anger and the power of meditation and, many holistic approach to things, many which I believe and subscribe to. But to me, there is nothing more healing than a good laugh. Nothing. Yeah. There is nothing that can release the tension, the pain, the aggravation, than just sitting down and laughing. And, you know, I think that the greatest gift that God gave man is a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I think he gave it to us because he realized it ain't going to be easy.
Yeah. Right,
and he said, human beings are going to need some way to get through all this.
Yeah.
And you know what? Humor is the way. That, to me, that is the greatest vehicle that we can drive through life. Because if we take ourselves or life too seriously, then we're never going to be happy. We have to be able to laugh at ourselves, laugh at other people. I'm one of those people. I'm of the Lenny Bruce, Joan Rivers type of mentality where nothing is off limits. If we can take the greatest things and laugh at them, we can just cut them down to size and make them bearable. Yeah. And I think that laughter is the thing that can do that better than anything else.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, let's continue down this road. Thanks for sharing that story, Norma. So now you're 39. You've stepped on stage. You've experienced, you've experienced the journey you just said. Now you decide, hey, I'm gonna leave Detroit and move to LA. So what was that level of reinvention? And that's a scary step. And so kind of walk us through the journey of that chapter.
Well, that was destiny. It always is. Life is full of destiny. Things happen. I'm sure if everybody who's listening today thought really hard, whether they realized it or not, there was some divine
100%
fortune or destiny, whatever you want to call it, came into their lives at certain times and took them from one road, put them on another without even them realizing it. But the opportunities came up in LA. Tim Allen's manager at the time, Tim was really breaking through at that time. He was doing the show Home Improvement. Yeah. And his manager at the time told me if I come out there, they would manage me. So I said, wow, that's a big opportunity. And then also I had a chance to be with a very big agency out here that does commercials, that one of the biggest in LA. And I met with them and I was waiting to hear from them if I could, if they would take me on as a client. In the meantime, the thing came from Rick at the same time that Sutton Bartham Denari called me and said, we're taking you on. And I said, well, okay, kids, we're going to LA. Just like that. Sometimes you can't overthink things either. Yeah. Because to be honest with you, the thought of doing that now, I don't know if I could have. I mean, I look back and I think, wow, that was really gutsy, Norma. You were quite a homebody. You were quite a Detroiter. How could you have done that? And yet I did it. I mean, I did it and it didn't work out the way I thought, because you know what? Life never does. No matter what you think. Man plans, God laughs. That's the way it goes.
So what happened and how did you pivot?
Well, I came out here and I was doing stand-up comedy. I was absolutely. But then what happened is I wanted to earn, when you're in LA, you're not making any money as a comic because the clubs in LA do not pay. You get $15 from the Improv. You can't live on that. So what I used to do is, you'll love this. The Improv, if I didn't get a set at the Improv, or if I didn't get a set at the Laugh Factory or any of the other clubs, I used to bake chocolate chip cookies and I used to take a bag of them to the manager of the club, and I used to bribe my way on stage. Well, what happened is the cookies got so popular. All the comics loved my cookies, and it got so popular. I started baking and selling stuff. And then I came up with this fat-free cake that I started selling to Jamba Juice, which was growing in LA at the time. And all of a sudden, I had a baking business going on. So I said, I've got to combine this somehow. So what I did is, I did a show in Vegas, a Mother's Day show, where I did as a promotion, I passed out bags of my cookies. And I started to do things like this. I started going on TV doing a lot of daytime shows, doing funny cooking demonstrations. I was a regular on a few shows, and it just blossomed. The cooking and the comedy started going together. So then I actually created my own cooking and comedy show, which I did in Las Vegas. I was the first person to even think of doing that. And I did it at a casino in Las Vegas. And it stuck. It just stuck with me. The whole cooking and comedy thing, it became both of my passions.
I love it. So I want to kind of dive into this a little bit because, you know, there's three types of people. There are the victims of, you know, who have the mentality, why me? You have ego-based people who are everything is for me. And then you have kind of the universal flow mindset, right? You surrender and allow things to flow through you as the universe puts it in front of you, where you can kind of be above the line, raise your frequency and vibration, identify when something is in front of you, and then take action. And so for you, you know, you got all of these signs to do it, but then you actually took action, right? And something you said earlier, you know, don't overthink it and this and the other. But what in you, because I think people are sometimes, many people, I'm a business coach. So I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between, and every role from CEO to salesperson and everything in between all over the world. And so many people, I think, have a hard time making a decision and taking action. And so what you're defining here is making a decision, taking action, really aggressive action. So just kind of walk people through a little bit more, get a little bit more granular on your formula.
You know what my formula, I'll tell you what it is. You have to be, I really believe that, remember the movie Anti-Mame? There was a movie with Roz Russell called Anti-Mame. She said a line in that stuck with me my whole life. Isn't that funny? Some things do. Some things resonate with you. I don't know why, but they do. And they touch something in you. And she said a line that life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving. And you know what? That stuck with me. And I always thought there's so much to do in this life. There are so many things to do. I mean, is it a matter of being ADD? Or is it a matter of just being curious to try out everything?
Yeah.
And I guess I just was one of those people that had so many interests and wanted to do so many things. And I thought to myself, why not if you can? You know, and I think that it's about being adventurous. You have to be a little bit of an adventurer too in life. Yeah. If, you know, like no risk, no reward. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. And I think I'm one of those people that feels, what's the worst that can happen? You fail. Right. So what? And you know something, I didn't want to be 80 years old and looking back and say, shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wanted to be the kind of person that would say, remember when because you know what? I think a lot of people don't realize, Jon. Yeah. There are no failures in life, because even from failure, you gain knowledge. I agree. So if you gain knowledge and wisdom from a failure, that's not a failure. Correct.
If you walk away with even one lesson, then you have won. I am a firm believer in that. You know, you're bringing up something. I remember when I wanted to be a business coach and write books and help people grow their businesses and do keynotes since I was 18, Norma. Wow. My dad, who you knew, was a dentist. And when I was 18, he gave me a set of tape sets by Brian Tracy called The Psychology of Success. And he said to me, Jonathan, listen to these people. You'll learn more from these people than you will college. And I became obsessed, still to this day, right? So we're now talking 32 years later. And that was always my goal. And I started my business 7 years ago. And I was in commercial real estate for a long time. And my business coach at the time said, hey, I want you, as I was saying to him, I want to start this business. He sent me to an attorney as an advisor, just to kind of pick his brain on some stuff. And I was leaving the office. I was kind of telling this guy what I wanted to do. And as I was leaving the office, he said, hey, I have one more thing I want to tell you. I said, yeah. He said, if you do nothing, you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And that was my deciding moment where I thought, okay, I've made my decision, because I never, like you're talking about, want to be 80, 90, 100 years old and look back with regret that I didn't do something. So I love your story of courage and your words of deep wisdom, that to somebody who's listening, it almost seems so simple. It's complicated, but really going back to the foundation of not overthinking something. And I just want to touch on this too, because I think if somebody's listening, they'd want to know this. I think I do this. I practice this. I do my best to live by it. Get out of my head, into my heart, into my gut, and into my instincts. I run my business based on instincts. I reinvent myself based on instincts. Yes. And so, data takes you only so far. Sam Walton leaves the boardroom with all of the data and goes to the diner and would talk to his people about what is going on, what they want, and then go back to the boardroom and filter the content out that didn't matter to the clients. And so that's how he tapped into his instincts. How do you tap into your instincts? One thing I do, for example, is I meditate. I find myself places to be quiet. I et cetera, et cetera. So what do you do to tap into your instincts that allow you to make a decision and not look back?
I have found in life, it's amazing. We all have a little voice inside of us.
Yeah.
Not in a crazy way. But we all.
Well, maybe sometimes, yeah, in a little crazy way.
Maybe in a crazy way. Maybe I misspoke it. But we all have a little voice inside of us, and it's located right here in our gut.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. It's not up here. It's in here.
It's not up here.
Nothing
good comes from overthinking. Yeah.
That's right. It's all in here in your gut. Every time I've made a decision in life, I have known in my gut, that little voice has told me this is the right thing. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And then what happens is when you do the right thing in life, it's like Goethe said, that when you make a decision, the universe conspires to assist you. So when you do the right thing, you'll know you're doing the right thing, because everything will fall into place the way it is supposed to. The times when I have made bad choices, bad decisions, and not listened to my gut, I have regretted it, because inside I knew every time I made those choices, my gut was telling me, no, danger, Will Rogers. Yeah. No. Okay. So it was like, Will Rogers, was that the name I'm thinking of?
I know what you're talking about. It's Lost in Space. You're doing a Lost in Space reference. Yeah.
So it's like, I've always known when I've made a bad choice, because my gut tells me there's a discomfort. Yeah. You have an uncomfortable feeling when you know something isn't right. You really do know it. And the problem is we ignore that voice. We ignore that feeling. And that's when we get into trouble. Yeah. You'll always know when you're doing the right thing, because you'll feel good about it, and the world will conspire to assist you with your goals, and everything will be right. Everything will just fall into place like rain. Yeah. So I really believe that we have to listen to ourselves. And how do I do that? I listen. I take that feeling and say, wait a minute. Is this good? Is this bad? And my little voice has really never been wrong. Yeah. I haven't listened to it sometimes. Yeah. But it's never been wrong. Yeah. And I think that's it. And meditation is good. Trying to shut out the world, shut out all those voices around you that can distract you. And then you won't hear your little voice. So that's why I believe in meditation. I believe in finding the quiet so you can connect with yourself. That's important to do. But don't be afraid. I think too many people are afraid, Jon. Yeah. They're so afraid of getting out of their comfort zones. It is great that you had a goal and you followed it. But I have also found that sometimes we have a goal and we head down a path. All of a sudden, fortune, destiny, whatever you want to call it, takes us and just sort of, moves us off that path a little bit onto another one.
Yeah, totally. I love what you're talking about. I'm in complete agreement. When you are in full alignment, the everything begins to fall into place. And when you're out of alignment, things will not. And I think the only thing I would add to that is to get into alignment. Sometimes you're in an adjustment period because it's not always easy. Just because you make a choice doesn't mean it's easy. There's an adjustment to alignment. But as long as you're always in alignment, what I find is that everything always seems to work out. And I just want to say one comment too. You said, how do you listen? You listen. I interviewed someone a couple months ago. I said, how do you make a decision? And his answer was, I make a decision.
That seems awfully simple. But you want to know something funny? There is a great story from the Kabbalah. It talks about in life, how we move through life.
Yeah.
And I guess in the Kabbalah, they believe that we go through steps. We all are like moving through life on plateaus.
Yeah.
Different plateaus. And I'm not always sure that the plateaus are going up. I kind of think sometimes we're going sideways too.
Yeah, I agree.
But what the Kabbalah teaches is that as you're rising in life, as you're climbing the stairs where you are now, and perhaps headed toward a greater place in yourself or in what you want to achieve in life, the closer you get to the top and get near the next plateau, the greater the evil inclination will be to pull you down. So when you are I've always believed this. And then when you get to the next plateau, the steps on the bottom are the easiest to climb. It's those last steps till you get to the next one that are the toughest. So what I've always believed is, and I mean, the simple truth to that is it's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
I've always believed that when life is difficult, when you're trying to achieve something and move to a different place in life or do something new you haven't done before, and life is interfering with you every way it can, and it will do that at times. And I'm sure everybody who who started a business or started a new career, there's been interference, there have been people trying to talk them out of it. All of these things, the worse it gets in life, the more encouraged I become, because I think to myself, this is the negativity that is trying to stop me from going to the positive place. Yeah. And if people keep that in mind and say, wait a minute, just a minute, you can't talk me out of this. I know it's right. My little voice is telling me it's right.
Right.
Be aware of that, because sometimes it is scariest when you are closest to the next great thing you're going to do in life or have in life. Yeah. So don't be afraid.
Well, stay in the light. Stay in your light.
Stay in the light.
Stay in the light.
The negativity, and just be encouraged by the negativity. It's trying to stop you from doing better, great things.
Darkness cannot live in light, and I love what you're talking about. Let's keep going. So now, Norma, and I didn't even know this, and I watched a couple episodes. They were great, by the way, and you were great in it. You're in this great TV show right now called Baking It on NBC. But I want to talk about that and how you reinvented yourself as a journalist, right? And so let's talk about the journalist path, right? So you're writing jokes. Now, writing jokes is different than being a journalist. But now, how did that come about? And tell us about that reinvention.
Well, I missed journalism. I mean, I really missed it. And I'll tell you, it was like, I did the baking, and I told you I started that baking business.
Yeah.
It got so big, Jon, that I was faced with that decision that we all, like every business person who started a business knows there's a decision that needs to be made eventually. And that is, you can't always stay the same. You can't always stay where you are. Sometimes you have to take a leap and completely invest in your business, reinvest in your business to make it grow, because it's not possible to stay at the same. Well, I was at that place where I had to invest in a complete bakery, put in a lot of money, and literally jump in head first, feet first, and go, or walk away. I couldn't keep doing what I was doing at that time. I said to my dad, what should I do? I don't know, because I would go to my dad for business advice and stuff. And he said, you're a journalist. You went to college, you got a degree. What are you talking about bakeries? You're a journalist. And you know what? Something in me, the voice said, yeah, okay. I said, I'll try to get a job as a journalist again and I'll see. And if it works out, I'll know that it's the right thing, right? And I looked in the paper and there was a job in the paper for a reporter at the Beverly Hills Courier. And I went, okay, I'll go, I'll try, I'm going to do this because I am like, I'll walk the path until I hit a brick wall, So I walked along, I went in for an interview. And Mark Schwartz, who owned the paper, he asked me a few questions. I walk out, I said goodbye to the receptionist. She calls me that day. She says, March wants you to start on Monday. I said, what? She says, March wants you to start on Monday. Now, I was like, okay. And I start, but they want to know the irony of that when we talk about destiny. March never read my resume, knew nothing about me. And had never advertised in the LA Times for a reporter in his whole life. This was the only time he had ever advertised. And I saw that ad. So I believe in destiny. Yeah. And I asked him once, why'd you hire me? You didn't know anything about my education. You didn't know anything about my experience. And he looked at me and he said, because I knew looking at you that you were the type of person that could handle anything that came along. And that's why he hired me. And there I was, all of a sudden, like bingo, I'm back to reporting again. Yeah. And then I ultimately became the editor of the paper, because at Mumford, we don't take any prisoners. I hope you know that. We're just not the reporter. We have to be the editor and then we have to own the paper. This is our Mumford mentality.
Yeah. Sure.
My upbringing, my Mumford upbringing.
Yeah. I love that story. And then, and so of all the things that you covered in journalism, what was the most fascinating thing that you covered?
Well, I think the Brockovich story was huge.
Yeah.
I you know what? You talk about second chances. I mean, I was working at the Beverly Hills Courier. It wasn't the New York Times. Okay. And I'm thinking I was just lucky to be back in journalism and doing what I loved. I loved working at that paper. And then all of a sudden, I got this chance to do some significant journalism, some investigative journalism, which I had thought was way too late for me to do.
Yeah.
And I literally, when Aaron Brockovich came to Beverly Hills and started throwing lawsuits around and started throwing claims that people were getting cancer from this oil well, I immediately, I believed her. I saw the movie. I thought, oh, Aaron Brockovich, if she says everybody's getting cancer from this oil well, Aaron Brockovich knows. Okay. Yeah. I bought into the Hollywood hype stuff. And so she called me and she said, Norma, it's so dangerous out there in Beverly Hills. Like nobody should be breathing the air. It's worse than the 405, which if you don't know California, the 405, forget it. It's a parking lot most of the time. It's worse than, the benzene levels and all this. And I'm listening, but I don't know much about it. Yeah. I'm not a scientist and that wasn't my best subject, believe me, in school. So I started doing some research just to learn for myself and know what I was talking about when I wrote the articles, which is what every reporter should do. If it's not your area of expertise, at least try to get a little bit of knowledge so you don't look stupid. Yeah. And you can also discern when people are talking to you, if they're telling you the truth or not. And that's how I found out that she had there were certain things I found out, like from the chemist who had done her testing. He told me there's no way she could have gotten these levels at the oil well. She could have only gotten them from putting it in the car and starting the motor in the trunk, putting it in a trunk and starting your motor. And I'm like getting very suspicious now. So I took her on and boy, they hated me. I'll tell you, but I took them on. And every other newspaper dropped the story because there was no story. But I kept going. And a couple of reporters from the LA Times, they weren't real happy with me because I won awards for the story ultimately. And I just, listen, I was, that's who I am. And I was, I was relentless and I didn't care if they liked me. I wasn't out to win awards, a popularity award with Aaron Brockovich. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they wound up having to pay Beverly Hills money.
Really? Wow. You've led quite a life thus far, Norma.
It's been a great ride, but
Yeah,
it's because
and such determination and focus and reinvention. I love it. So now let's talk about the show that you're on today, right?
baking it.
Yeah, baking it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's so much fun, and I love what Amy Poehler is the producer. She's one of the producers, executive producers of the show, and I love what she did because she wanted it to be very family oriented. And, being in Hollywood, I'm going to tell you something. Women in Hollywood, I mean, over 49, it's like they want you to get in a boat and go into the Pacific and die somewhere. They don't even know you're alive. They don't want to know you're alive. It's like, it's crazy. I talk about ageism. It starts and ends right in this town. So it's really surprising when someone's looking for a grandmother to be on a show, and Amy decided if she's going to do a baking show, she's going to do it like more family oriented. And she thought it would be great to have grandmothers doing the judging. And I had been on the Food Network a couple of times. I had done a couple shows on there, and the casting director remembered me from the Food Network and called me up and said, there's a new show starting. You want to try out? And I said, not if I have to cook, because that no, thank you. Too much pressure for an old broad like me. She said, no, you're a judge. I said, oh, I'm there. Oh, I'm there for sure. The judging, critiquing, I'm there. That'll be fun. Yeah. So I tried out, and as destiny has it, I wasn't supposed to get the show. Actually, there was another very famous woman in contention to do the show. One of the really icons of the baking business who started all that, those great cakes and all that stuff, Sylvia Weinstein, but she didn't get it. And they decided against her at the last minute, and they called me back, and that was it. I got the show.
It's great.
Yeah, destiny, always destiny, Jon.
Yeah,
but it's a great ride. It's been a lot of fun. They were so good to us at NBC. I mean, they treated us like we were made of glass. I think they were afraid we'd break a hip or something. I don't know what that was. But they were so sweet to us. And Amy Poehler, the producer, I mean, everybody on the show was wonderful. And it was like one of the best. It was probably the best experience one of the best experiences I ever had in show business.
I love it. What's next for Norma Zager?
Well, it's hard to, man plans, God laughs. Norma plans, God's rolling on the floor.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, get me more of her. I love her. She's a riot. I plan, but I don't really invest in the plan. It's like right now we're hoping the show gets picked up and NBC does it again, next again for sure, because the show's gotten great reviews. So we're optimistic. So that's great. And I just finished a book. I've got a new book. It's called We're All Human and Other Fairy Tales. And it's basically a book of essays about crazy and life and people and our experiences. And then there's a few recipes of my own that I've created dotted through the book. Nice. So I'm waiting for a publisher to latch on to that one, and hopefully that'll be soon. Yeah. So I try to keep busy. I'm inventing things, I'm doing things, I'm writing, it's just whatever comes my way, I'm open to it. I think that's another thing. Be open to everything, because if you're not, when something comes along, don't close your mind to anything. Yeah. You may not even recognize at the time that something is going to change your life, but usually it's the things you don't recognize that do change your life. Yeah. So be open to everything the universe sends your way, because those are sometimes the greatest adventures you may wind up having at the end of the day.
Yeah, those are great things to say and share. A couple last questions for you. When you look back at your life thus far, what one thing drives you the most today?
Oh, well, obviously the shortness of time. I mean, I am the kind of person who really, really fights to believe there are no limitations, that I can do anything. Okay. I don't care, at my age, even now, I can still do everything. It's okay. Yeah. But part of you does start to realize there are limitations, even if they're just physical. There are people say, I started running a marathon at the age of 75. I started training. Well, honey, there's no way I'm training for a marathon. I'm just thrilled to be able to get out of bed in the morning. The whole thing. So there are limitations on what I can do. So I'm very well aware of the restrictions that I have now, but I try not to let them stop me to do the things that I feel I still can do. I still feel like there's tons of stuff I want to do in life. And I'm not, there's things on my bucket list I have not done yet.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I can still do them. There's still time. We all like to believe that. But as you get older, reality does set in a bit, I have to say. But it won't stop me. It won't stop me from trying,
Define yourself in one word.
Oh, God. A friend of mine defined me in one word. And I think she was right, Myra. She always used to say, she used to call me Plucky. That was her nickname for me, and it still is. Plucky. So I guess Plucky. I'm not afraid. I mean, we're all afraid, but I guess that for some reason, I don't let it stop me.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's, plucky would be the word for Norma.
Finish this sentence for me, Norma. This podcast is Think Business Exclusives, getting to the soul of business. And I think we're in a time in the world right now, as we record this in January 2022, where people are starting to understand what their self-worth is. They are getting to their soul, understanding their values more, because I think I can point to one thing being the experience we've all gone through and continue to go through with COVID. People are more in touch with their, I think, personal values than ever before. So finish this sentence. You can get to the soul and listen to your inner voice by
opening yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Open up your heart, open up your mind, and let the good come in. Let the positive come in. Let good ideas come in. Sort through them. I mean, listen, you're gonna have some bad ideas in life, but you're also gonna have some great ones. And go with it. Either way, the worst doesn't happen if what you want doesn't happen.
Yeah,
that's what you need to focus on. What's the worst? It doesn't happen that way. It may happen a better way. And guess what? It usually does happen. I always found out life sometimes wants more for us than we want for ourselves.
Yeah.
If we're willing to settle for less than we might achieve and not live up to our potential, then that's what we'll have.
Yeah.
Don't settle. Go for it. I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
Try. There's nothing failures. There's no failure.
Yeah.
And go for it. Live your life. It goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
Life goes by like, I feel like I should be still in Mumford High School right now. It's hard to discern that we've become, I look at on Facebook at all our friends and all my friends from school, and it's like, when do we become our parents? What happened to us, But we are, and that's why you have to keep focused on every day is precious. Every minute is precious. Don't, try not to waste them. Especially after this last 2 years that we were like robbed. We totally got robbed. And at this age, we could not afford to lose those years.
Yeah.
But, I did during the pandemic, I did stay busy. I wrote, I tried to be productive. You won't accomplish it every day, but hey, what the heck? Go for it.
I love it. This podcast, I'll just kind of recap again. The tagline of this one Think Big Exclusives is getting to the soul of business. And I really, really appreciate you giving us a piece of your soul, your sage wisdom, your advice, your guidance, everything from, the teacher that kicked us off as far as being mentors, and everything you shared in relation to laughing at ourselves and have the guts to walk the path and destiny and don't overthink and, just reinventing yourself and being curious, relentless, and just do it. And I appreciate it. And Norma, I'm so glad we reconnected. I really appreciate you, messaging me on Instagram. I loved you then. I still love you now. And
You're so sweet.
am grateful for, so many things that you shared They sound simple, but they really need inner reflection for people to just remember it and live it and not forget it. It's the simple things that I find we all forget. And COVID slowed us down a bit for good. I think that's some of the good that came from COVID. And as we speed up, we have to remember, I read a book a long, long time ago. It was called Living Your Yoga. And it was talking about it's not just about yoga on the mat, but how can you live it off the mat? And so, and the words that you shared, it's about how can we live just a little piece of it every day. And when we catch ourselves out of alignment, a lot of your wisdom can get us back into alignment. So I'm really grateful for your time, your energy, your thoughts, your wisdom. I wish you continued success on everything that you do. I'm looking forward to now staying in touch and seeing what the next chapters of your life and how those unroll. But thanks. It was great. It was great.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it too. And I want to wish everybody who's listening today, and especially you and your adorable wife, and say hi to your father-in-law for me.
I will.
and like, I want to wish everybody find your your happy place, and you learn and you find a way to live within your happy place. Yeah. That's the most important thing.
That's it. Amen to that. Thanks, everybody. Norma, how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
I have a website, normazager.com. They can go on there, or they can just they can write me at write46@aol.com. That's write like a book, WRITE, lowercase w, write46@aol.com. If you want to touch bases and catch up or anything, I'm always thrilled to hear from people, and I love chatting and talking and catching up.
I love it. Norma, thank you so much. Think community, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks, Norma.
Thank you. Good luck with everything, Jon.
Thanks so much.
Take care, honey.